Hi D&D fans, and welcome to my review of Dragon Magazine, issue number 6 from 1977. Last episode, I reviewed issue number 5, and as is my wont, whenever I review an issue that receives a rating of 6 or higher, that would be a passing grade of at least a D- if you were back in school, I like to crack open a can of my favorite beverage, sparkling water. So, as I forgot to last time, here is a can of sparkling water. Here's to you, Dragon Magazine issue number 5. You were excellent. You really added a lot to my 5th edition game, even though you were all the way back from 1st edition. So, I'll be drinking this throughout. All right. So, I am Sparkle's Devil Monster. I review old Dungeons & Dragons publications, and eventually the new ones, looking for material to supplement my 5th edition game. And today, we are looking at this trippy cover art from Dragon number 6. And as you can see here, we have a fighter in scale mail. He is wearing a shield, and he is ready to fight some kind of crazy monster from a fever dream. It looks like a harpy. She's got her tits out. She's got a wyvern stinger, feathers, possibly very dangerous. Maybe she can mess with your head. We don't really know because this monster doesn't appear in any official monster manual that I know of. We'll go with harpy. Or maybe a harpy with a wyvern's poisonous stinger attack. And our fighter, perhaps after he finishes destroying this trippy monster, will be rescuing the elf princess, who is also there. She is chained to the wall with 2 gilded locks, perhaps brass, and there is a portal behind her. And by portal, I mean just a doorway with an open doorway with no door. And it is labeled with the Roman numeral 11. You can see that some of the other portals are also labeled with Roman numerals, perhaps indicating dungeon rooms on the map. And beyond that open doorway is a mountain with a cavern below and a castle beyond. So a lot of room here for the imaginative DM to create a dungeon for players. All right, so moving on, I always look first for a few types of NPCs, non-player characters, with which to entertain my players and, of course, myself. The first one is a villain, and there is a villain who fits the bill, as well as my other types of NPCs, an ally and a background or flavor NPC on page 12, where there's some fiction here, the Forest of Flame. And you can see a picture of the villain. The villain is some sort of flaming demon, elemental evil. It's not really a fire elemental. I think it's actually a demon, perhaps a Baylor, one of the many demons from the abyss that is wreathed in flames. And the demon is described as follows. Crimson, the daemon exuded it, a constant figure molded of all-consuming flame. Each spot where it set down a crackling foot ignited. Each branch and leaf it touched exploded in fire. Behind, the flames roared and the trees toppled as insignificant torches while the daemon laughed. All right, so there's a good villain to assault your party, some daemon wreathed in flame. Next, a potential ally is the protagonist of this story. His name is Viseku. The day began as any other in the woods of Faranath, but as the sun lifted its haze-dimmed face to awaken the birds of song, and night's hunters sought the cool places of their shadowed lairs, they beheld the seeming second sunrise of a fire in the forest, which cast a glow over the far-flung trees. Though the double dawn had no meaning for the wild creatures, Visaque of North Umber knew too well the probable doom it portended. For him, it was a morning of nightmare. All right. So Visaque of North Umber. I don't know who the Northumbrians are. I think this is a real place in Great Britain. Perhaps those of you who are British nationals could let me know. What are Northumbrians really like? This character is quite heroic. So then we have a flavor NPC. Visaque remembers a merchant who sold him a particular item. He saw with the eye of memory before him the bearded face of a merchant from Alphenar, bearing the iron-bound volume that even now swung bulkily at Visaque's side. Heard again with the inner ear that praises the trader who had spoken of that ancient book. Felt again the weight of long-saved silver released from his hand when he paid out the price. So low at that. Small wonder the youth almost smiled. Would that the daemon's price be so low. Well, hopefully Visaque's book helps him defeat the demon. But to find out, you'll have to go ahead and read Dragon number 6 yourself. If you can find it online, great. If not, just email me, sparklesdevilmonster@gmail.com. I will send you a copy of my version of this PDF. All right. Next, I am looking for something that fleshes out my game world. In this case, it is Sea Trade, which is described on page 6. So if you have a maritime campaign and you are looking for a system for helping players with their mercantilism on the high seas, Dragon number 6 is probably a good one for you. This is actually a fairly useful chart. Here is a picture of the vessel. This is a merchant vessel. And merchant vessels in first edition D&D, at least as described here at Dragon Magazine, can carry between 10,000 and 50,000 gold pieces worth of commodities. It's up to you to determine the nature of the commodities. Perhaps barley. You want to buy low and sell high. And there is a table here to roll on for determining your profit and loss, potential loss. Here is a glimpse at this table. And it's kind of hard to make out, perhaps, but it uses the number of ports bypassed. So you take off from a starting location loaded with goods, and you travel, and if you travel to the very next port, the nearest port, then there's not too much of a difference, too much of a disparity in the prices of goods. It makes it harder to buy low and sell high. If you travel really far away, across the waves to some foreign continent, some foreign shore, you're more likely to lose your entire ship along the way. Perhaps a storm at sea, or the attack of a leviathan or dragon turtle sinks your ship. Maybe wicked mermen sink it or jump on board and steal your goods. And then, of course, there's always the pirates. A pirate attack is always fun. However, you can quintuple your initial expenditure. So if you have 10,000 GP worth of goods and you go all the way to some foreign shore and sell it and roll well on the percentile dice, you may in fact reap 50,000 gold pieces. So it's kind of a cool table. I hadn't prepared anything like that in my homebrew, and could be quite helpful for a special type of party that really wants to do maritime trade. All right, definitely deserves a sparkle. As did the trippy cover art. Okay, next we have a description of a morale system, which is something I might use to flesh out the dungeon delving or combat portion of a Dungeons & Dragons game. Morale in D&D. So why have a morale system? The great appeal of Dungeons & Dragons role-playing lies in the uncertainty of any action taken. It is the anticipation of standing before a sturdy oaken door in a corridor dimly lit by flickering torches, preparing to force it open. It is the uneasiness of finding an artifact of unknown purpose and attempting to discover its powers. It is leaping into combat with a foe man of unknown skill and ability. Ooh, potentially lethal. It is. And yet the allure of the game can tarnish in time through the dullness that can come from too much familiarity. Thus, in nearly every publication devoted to D&D, one can find new monsters, new classes of characters, or new magical items, all intended to add to the uncertainty of play. All right. So this particular dungeon master, as he goes on to describe, believes that players get a little too cocky as they get stronger. That's true, I'll drink to that. They think they can overcome just about anything through sheer muscle and swordsmanship. And perhaps they would be better served if they ran away from some encounters. And that's true, but I don't want to force it on players. Part of the reason they're playing is they want to be heroes. They want to display courage and feats of bravery and prowess. And if they decide to run away, that's one thing, but you don't want to force it on them as the DM and say, oh, your character's scared, you failed a wisdom save or something, run away, unless it's a magical effect. Usually players are willing to run away if you say as the DM, this creature used an ability on you that mentally influenced your mind and caused fear to arise. If you just say, oh, you're scared and you run away, that's taking control of their character away from them, and they don't like that. So I might use some kind of morale system like the table described for like low-level non-player characters or monsters who are in combat with the player characters and decide that they would rather keep their worthless lives and save their hides by running from battle. That's okay. They're just monsters after all, and goblins have never been known to be particularly brave. So, next up we have a new monster, and this is a cool monster. It is the Death Angel, described on pages 28 and 29. Here is our Death Angel, and he's got a cool scythe, right? Just like the classic Grim Reaper. When the wheat is ready, the reaper shall reap. And here he is, there's a glint on it too, ready to cleave your head from your shoulders and carry you off into the afterlife. The Death Angel. All right, so this is a character of neutral alignment, or a monster of neutral alignment. And the Death Angel is highly intelligent and speaks all languages telepathically. So when you're fated to die, Death, with the bony finger, taps on your shoulder and tells you, come with me. You may have seen Monty Python's Meaning of Life. They have a good Death Angel, a good Grim Reaper in that one, in that movie. The Death Angel also has this scythe, right, which is a magic weapon. And if you get hit with the scythe, you must make a death saving throw, here with a -3 penalty. In 5th edition, I would use the advantage-disadvantage mechanic and say you were hit by Death's scythe, roll a death saving throw with disadvantage. And I don't know, and that would be in addition to the hit point damage, right? So you wouldn't necessarily have to be at 0 hit points to make those death saves like normal. You would have to start making death saves while being up and having hit points. And as soon as that 3rd death save is missed, bam, you're dead. So it's a pretty cool monster. I suppose a priest could then use Raise Dead on you and bring you back. But otherwise, you'd be on your way towards that white light and whatever fate awaits you beyond the grave. So the death angels are described as fingers of fate, and thus utilized by very powerful entities such as gods, demigods, and some liches, and very few evil high priests of 20th level or higher. They have a particular person in mind who is fated to die, and the death angel is sent to reap that person's soul. Perhaps if your players are getting a little too cocky, you have a villain send the death angel after them. Or perhaps they're fated to die in a heroic way. And at that moment, as the red dragon swoops over the bridge and begins roasting everything with its flame, the death angel is there, as well as the character protects his friends with his shield to tap him on the shoulder and reap him from the battlefield. But he saves his friends in the meantime. So that might be a good use of a death angel in a campaign. All right, so then I looked for a spell and a magic item. I didn't really find anything that great. For the spells, they have psionic abilities or psychic powers described on page 25. And you see psionics and other issues of D&D, so I won't belabor the point. They have powers like ESP, empathy, body weaponry, mind over body, suspend animation, domination, hypnosis, cell adjustment, molecular agitation, precognition, telekinesis, probability travel. So these are all science fantasy or a sort of a science fiction gloss over magic powers. And I was never a huge fan of psionics. They don't really do it for me. And as the magic item, mental battery is described on page 5 as something you power up with your psychic powers, and then once the battery is charged, it could be used to power a spacecraft, perhaps a spelljammer vessel, or any other item that requires mental energy as juice. Again, that just doesn't do anything for me. And as for a wild card or a certain special something or secret sauce, je ne sais quoi of the issue, it really doesn't have that for me. It spends a lot of time describing the Empire of the Petal Throne setting or Metamorphosis Alpha, which later became Gamma World, science fiction settings that are just not Dungeons & Dragons. And as a 5th edition DM, I can't really say those really appeal to me much. So ultimately, Dragon Magazine, issue number 6, receives a 4 out of 10 rating. Not enough for it to get its own can of sparkles. Thanks, and see you next time.